Welcome to my video featuring my bus trip from Medellin in the department of Antioquia, Colombia, to the small town of Tolu, which is located in the department of Sucre on the Atlantic coast of Colombia. This was in fact the first time that I've ever done this bus trip and this route, and so I didn't really know what to expect. What I found, however, was a very pleasant surprise, and I'd have to rate this trip as one of the top 6 that I've ever done for scenic value in Colombia. If by chance you plan on doing this trip at some point in the future, note that there are 2 large terminals in Medellin, the north and the south. And you'll want to go to the terminal in the north. If you want to tell the taxi driver this, you can say Voy al terminal de transporte en el norte, or you can just say Terminal de transporte norte, por favor, which just means the north terminal, please. As you'll see in the video, the bus is already winding its way higher up into the mountains, and you'll notice lots of vacation homes, which in Colombia are called fincas. Pretty soon you're going to notice some spectacular sun rays that was a bonus for me to be able to see. If you're interested in knowing what time I left and which bus line I used Expreso Brasilia, which is a pretty big bus line in Colombia, and I left at 7:30 a.m. from the aforementioned North Terminal. The scheduled time for arrival in Tolu was 6:30 p.m., making for a trip of 11 hours, if it arrived on time, that is. Also, for your information, when I'm in Colombia, I often use a site called redbus.co, which does list the names of the bus lines and the times and the prices of the bus trips. It's very handy. As I've mentioned in plenty of my other bus trip videos, most major trips in Colombia, whether it's from Bogota to Medellin or Bogota to Cali, or Medellin to Cartagena, etc., do involve going up into the mountains, which means a lot of curves. And so if you suffer from motion sickness, you might want to consider flying. But if you want to brave it, just know that the drivers always do have plenty of barf bags on board, and there's usually a few incidents that I notice on pretty much every trip. Buenos dias, damas y caballeros. ¿Cómo estás? So today I'm doing a bus trip from Medellin to Tolu on the Atlantic coast, and we're just doing our first food stop. There's cafeteria here, and a bunch of snacks and the usual kind of junk food you can get. I just bought some yogurt. Apparently it's natural. And today I am on the Brasilia line that I'll show you in a second. Expreso Brasilia. And I think this is going to cost, or I think this is going to take 10.5 hours, if not more. So it's quite a long bus trip. And it's pretty costly as well. Yeah, it's 160,000 pesos, which is $65 Canadian, which by Colombian standards is quite a bit of money. But
Again, the way things are working right now, I have a seat to myself because they don't fit anybody else beside me because of the pandemic. You know, there's a bunch of military people here. Just trying to get them in the background. I don't want to film them directly, but they're carrying their machine guns, as you can probably see over my shoulder there. And anyway, I'm gonna go inside and have my yogurt and maybe find something else to eat. I don't know how many breaks we're gonna be taking here. So by Colombian standards, we're actually quite high up in the mountains, so it's actually a little bit chilly. Hence the fleece jacket. Anyway, I'm sure we'll be coming down on the mountains, and then it's going to get pretty flat for a lot of the trip, I think. And it's going to get really toasty in Tolu and past Monteria.
So this food break was done quite early in the day. I think that it was only around 10 a.m. or so. And I'm not quite sure what the rhyme or reason was behind it, but there wouldn't be any more food breaks for the rest of the trip. Normally, most buses stop around the halfway point on the major routes like this, but I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, but that's not the way it worked on this one. So stock up accordingly on food or eat a good sized meal, because that'll be your last chance if you're going all the way to Tolu. Here's a bit of general information for you about bus trips in Colombia. First off, the major bus lines are pretty good at leaving on time, and so you don't usually have to worry about buses leaving really late. So show up on time. Second, you'll note from a few clips back that the bus I was on was a nice large bus, and in general the major bus lines do have very new looking buses that are quite comfortable, and often they have Wi-Fi. On many of the routes, the drivers will be playing movies that are Hollywood blockbusters, but with Spanish voiceovers. Generally speaking, I wait to buy my bus ticket on the day of when I arrive to the terminal. The exception would be when it's holidays, and when that's the case, I'd advise that you buy your ticket at least 24 hours, if not 48 hours in advance, or even more if you're able to. Last but not least, occasionally buses will be pulled over at military or police checkpoints, and a couple of officers or military personnel will come on board the bus and either take everyone's ID, or they'll sometimes ask the men to step off of the bus and they'll have to present their ID, which will be checked. And so, unless you're actually doing something wrong or illegal, you don't have anything to worry about. Once in a while, you'll even be asked to assume the position, and they'll give you a very general pat down, but this has happened plenty of times and I've never had any kind of hassle whatsoever, so you don't really need to worry about that kind of a thing. While I think of it, there's one other thing that I'd like to mention about bus trips in Colombia, and that is that for some unknown reason, the occasional bus driver will have the air conditioning on so high that it's just downright chilly, and so I highly advise that you always have a coat and or a nice heavy sweater with you on board the bus for in the event that happens. Trust me, I've seen many a person just shivering for several hours on the bus and no one will ever say anything, and so you definitely want to have something to keep you warm for those times that happens. At this point, higher up into the mountains, we experienced some beautiful fog conditions. Some of the homes up in this area had beautiful mountain views, and it'd be really interesting to know how much some of the modest sized homes actually cost. At this point, we're just finishing our descent down from the mountains, and as you cross over this bridge and this significant river, it gets down to a much flatter region, and you start going through a bunch of very small towns that look quite interesting. I later learned, however, that this river flooded a few years back and did a lot of damage to these little towns. After the main meal break a few hours earlier, the bus did in fact make a few pit stops, but they're just very quick stops to drop off the odd passenger or pick up the odd passenger here and there. And so there wasn't enough time to go in for snacks or anything.
that no one is wearing masks here, which is another town that I like.
Because some of the towns look rather interesting, I was thinking to myself that maybe I'll stop at one or two of them on the way back to Medellin. But when I was in Tolu, I asked about the safety of the towns, and I was told that it probably wouldn't be a good idea for an extranjero, or a gringo, a foreigner. One of the main reasons I was interested in stopping at one of the towns is because I looked up some river rafting companies and I thought that would be a lot of fun, but always best to play it safe and take the advice of the people that know these towns. The main reason that they wouldn't have been safe was because of the guerrillas or guerrilla. As you can now see, the landscapes are becoming quite flat, and that's quite indicative of a lot of the Atlantic coastal areas of Colombia.
Caucasia Terminal.
And here's your first glimpse of the Atlantic coast of Colombia near Tolu. Before reaching Tolu, however, the bus would be going through a small town called Coveñas, which is very similar to Tolu. However, it's a little bit more expensive to stay there. But I was really looking forward to some ocean time.
Hoping that I'm going to my hotel. Oh, they still have the Christmas lights. Alumbrados de Navidad. This is kind of a fun way to get to the hotel.
Hey, pendiente para cuando llegue la noche allá, ¿vale? ¿Oíste?
getting off the bus in Tolu, this pedicab rider was waiting for passengers, and so I thought it'd be a fun way to get to my hotel. If I recall correctly, the fee was only around 5,000 or 6,000 pesos, which is only a couple dollars Canadian. At this point, it was early January of 2021, but as you can see by the way that the driver was dressed in shorts and a t-shirt, it was plenty warm out, and during the day it was downright toasty.
They still have the Christmas lights up. So this would obviously be El Centro. I thought my hotel was actually going to be closer, but maybe it's tomorrow's hotel that's going to be closer to this spot right here. But right now, I'm hungry. For some food. I have to hope that I don't get lost. Yeah, very nice surprise that the lights are still up. Most places have taken them down by now. And who would have expected a horse-drawn carriage in Tolu? I certainly wasn't. They have them where I live, but I certainly wasn't expecting it here. That's kind of cool. Definitely seems to be a happening, kind of noisy little place. Hard to choose where to eat. So at long last I made it to Tolu. My friend has been telling me about Tolu for many, many years. Other people recommended it. So the bus ride was about almost 12 hours, about 8 stops, only one quick food break, and that was at about 10 a.m. this morning. But the scenery is really beautiful between Medellin and where we went to that big wide river, and then after Caucasia, I think that's how it's pronounced, Caucasia. It got a little bit boring after that, but all in all, the trip went really quickly, even though it was quite a long haul because of the beautiful scenery. And I hope that you enjoyed the view from my bus window as much as I did. And if you did, consider giving me a thumbs up, subscribing, and I'll be doing a lot more adventures yet. So thanks for watching, and until next time, hasta los tacos. And remember, there's no you in Colombia, but hopefully someday you will make it here and enjoy Colombia as much as I have over the years.